Hi there, me, Michelle. Welcome to the Progressive Rock Central. Thank you for taking some time to interview with me. This interview is a long time coming. Mimi entrusted me with her solo album before it was even released, and so that I could do a review. I appreciate that trust and have wanted to interview her for the website I did a review for on a different website, but I've wanted to do an interview with her for a long time. So finally, we connect today to keep a promise I made to myself. And before we get started, I just want to say thank you very much. Scroll
There it is! Yay! That's the
and
cover. Thank you. And inside, yeah, that's
and
what
it
I wrote
is
for you.
it's
Thank
an
you.
incredible
And then,
scroll. I mean,
and then we have like 10 meters of content of illustration and lyrics to all the music. And
and
thank you, Mark.
I told myself don't open the scroll because you're not gonna get it. And then I did it anyway. All right.
It works easier with a table. Now we have a screen in front, of course. That's different.
But definitely, thank you for the scroll. I mean, how many musicians send people they don't even know something of this value just to do a music? I mean, I really can't thank you enough. And it's 10 meters, and the drawings were made for every song of your first solo album, Heliodor, and it must have cost a small fortune, but you believed faithfully in your first release, which I thought was wonderful in every way. So I'm going to let you talk about that. Talk about the Heliodor.
Oh, Mark, thank you first. You know, it was a pleasure to me to send you this scroll once it was ready, even pre-release. Because I have got to know you for someone following my work for years, for many years, and I thought, like, who deserves my first solo album in its final shape if not you? And I really appreciate your review for it as well, and so I'm very grateful. Thank you for that. You see, Heliodor was my first solo album, even though I'm a professional musician in the Hamburg music scene for like 25 years already. Several projects and bands and releases and stuff. But when I started my solo work, there was a kind of a game changer came on the plan when I met Ken Stringfellow. And this happened because he was actually looking for a singer accompanying him with a country duet from his latest solo album, Dancing in the Moonlight. And I got recommended to him, luckily. And so that's how we met in 2013.
That was going to be one of my questions, but
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I was lucky enough, we had a fantastic night. It was absolutely brilliant. And the next day we even had a little YouTube video shooting in my home flat, even because I thought, like, maybe I have a location that is great for this format. And so we had this shooting together, and it was all so great. And Ken said, like, this will not be the last time that we meet, and I'll get back to you. And like half a year later, we performed again, and he had listened to my previous solo recordings and work that hadn't been released. But he listened to it and said, like, well, why don't you ask me to produce your album? And I was like, wow, what a blessing.
yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Of course, it took a few more years. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to interrupt for just a second, in case people don't know who Ken Stringfellow is. He's sort of the leader and lead singer for a Seattle-based band, the Posies, who were famous in the 80s and 90s, at least over here. And he's originally from Bellingham, which I've now moved to Bellingham, and I love it up here. And I've actually talked to him a little bit about it, but one of these days I'm going to get a chance to meet him too. But wonderful guy. But sorry, just
Hopefully
in case no one knew who he was. I don't think there's anyone out there that didn't, but just in case.
Yeah, I have to say, Ken Stringfellow is not only an extraordinary musician, like in his solo work or in the Posies. When you get to learn a little bit about his, let's say, lifetime work up to now, it's really mind-blowing. I think he has performed, produced, mixed, and whatever, written on more than 500 albums or so. That's I mean, I don't know anyone who has achieved something like that. And he's one of the finest guys in music, I have to say. I mean, he's very open for others, helping them into their potential. He's like super top-notch professional, and a very creative mind. So what I enjoyed the most working with him was, or let's say like that, when we started the production, Ken asked me if I had questions, and we were, only in touch by writing emails. And I wrote him a letter and said, like, oh, I'm getting nervous, and I've done music for so long, and where do you see me? Because I love to have so many facets about my voice and the music itself, and sometimes I don't know, is it too much, or do you think there is a certain sound that would fit me best or whatever? And I loved what he replied to me. He said to me, Mimi, if you like a certain genre or sound, how you want to sound like, I can do anything you like for you, but this is not how I work. And now it gets interesting. He said, he really connects with the people, and he wrote in that letter that what he is interested in is me. He said, I'm interested in you. I'm interested in how you sound like and what is coming out of you, when we get into working. And he encouraged me a lot to believe in my instincts. Yeah. And never anyone before in the music business I ever met gave me a perspective like that. And I was really blown away. And at first I didn't know what to do with my freedom. I was so, whoa, really?
And very nice of them, yeah.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And then we made it like step by step, and I'm very happy and still happy with the outcome that we achieved together.
Great album. Great album.
Thank you.
I just got to ask you though, what's your favorite Posey song?
Oh God, there are dozens. Many. Okay, of course, Solar Sister is a classic that I will always love. I think it's one of the most popular ones, but there are so many more. I love the Blood Candy album, which means there are, like, every song is a winner. It's just an incredible record. I love it so much. And I couldn't choose a song, actually. It's hard.
For me, it was Dear 23. Flood of Sunshine is probably still number one. but you avoid parties and apology. I mean, I almost cried the first time I heard those. I mean, he
Yes.
just really brought out the emotions on those two songs, and well, the band. But yeah, I remember playing that thing to death. I mean, and
Yeah.
I still love it. I still can put it on. It brings back a lot of memories. But yeah, that one's a classic. Now, one thing that I didn't know is that you actually had an EP. I thought this was your first album, but you actually had an EP back in 2012. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or
Yeah,
it's go ahead.
it's how I started writing my own songs, which I hadn't done before. Um, and the beautiful thing was that I have a friendship and a musician connection with a songwriter from Canada who is called David Celia. Brilliant. You have to check that out. I love his work so much. And David and I met in Hamburg, performed a few shows together. And actually, he inspired me a lot to change my sound a little, because I always loved folk and country influences to pop music. And before I was more, Mark, about working with Sylvan and having that side project with Sylvan drummer Matthias Harder, my band that was called Rain for a Day. And that was more like a progressive approach to music. And what I wanted to do was actually write pop songs. But I wanted to give them a more natural, more acoustic sound. And so the EP is way more acoustic than the extravagant sound of my album. So it was the first steps. And I was influenced a lot by David. David even performed on my first recordings. And then I recorded here in Hamburg in a wonderful studio place called the Blue House Studio, run by a couple. It's Ole Rode, a fantastic guitarist, and his wife, Anne de Wolf, who is an incredible multi-instrumentalist. Both beautiful souls, best people in the world, and great musicians. And yeah, they kind of gave the birthplace for my first EP called "Bring Everyone You Know."
All right. Let's come back to Ken, because I had this set up a little differently, but that was okay. I'm glad you did what you did. Are you working with Ken Stringfellow on the next album yet, or I know he's been very busy touring, and I think he did a show here in Seattle not too long ago. But I think he's over there in Europe doing a few shows. But have you got a chance to get together and maybe talk about the next step, or?
Yeah, lucky enough, we are in touch, like texting. Last time we could be in physical presence together was in September last year. And I was lucky to, after lockdown, everything opened a little bit. And so it was possible that I could bring him here for a gig we played together, like an in-presence concert. That was wonderful. We were sold out immediately. We had a wonderful night, really. And the next day we did an online show via Connect Club. That's a platform that I think they are from Seattle as well. It's a startup from Seattle, as far as I know. Okay. So we had that online show together. And when he was here, we thought okay, let's use every minute of the time that we can spend together and record the new material that I wrote. I had written 2 songs during lockdown, number 1. And and when he was here, we recorded vocals and instruments for that. Ken played like crazy, like programming stuff and playing every instrument. I have instruments at home he could use. And so the main part was really done at home. Then afterwards, I went to several studios. Anne and Ulle from Blue House Studio also performed like on the new recordings. Anne played strings for one of the singles, and then I went to another studio, Chef Rock Studio, huge studio here in Hamburg, where I re-recorded some parts of the vocals. And yeah, so bit by bit it came together, and now the songs are mixed by Ken Stringfellow as well, and also already mastered.
Excellent. So you're progressing on your way to it. Good.
Yeah.
Can't wait. I'm looking forward to your next one. It's going to be wonderful. I'm sure it'll be as good or even better than the last one. I did first hear you perform on the progressive rock band Sylvan's Gravity album.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back in, back in 2009. And I'll never forget the sound of your voice on the tracks Island Me and Midnight Sun. They were the best songs on the album.
Oh, wow.
I think so. I really do think so. We listen to them on a regular basis, and I think Midnight Sun is one of my wife's favorite songs. It's just beautiful. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And then I was gonna also go with that first.
I mean,
What was it
was a
like
little.
performing with Sylvan or go ahead.
You see, I know these guys from my childhood, even our childhood, adolescence, let's say. I met Matthias when I was 17 years old or so. And Sylvan wasn't even called Sylvan at that time. They were called Chameleon, and they had a gig like in a small town close to the place where I grew up. And I was performing with my funk rock band, acid jazz influenced funk band, Spacey Trancer, like the first band I ever had. And we met there, and he fell in love with my voice and said like, oh gosh, can we write songs together? And so it happened that we formed a duo, and our project Rain for a Day was like, started at that time. Rain for a Day. And so I got to learn, I met all the guys of Sylvan, and of course I was next door whenever anything happened, when a record came out, when they wrote new songs, or when the members changed. Kai, the guitarist, who is meanwhile a vocal student, I'm teaching him in vocals right now, but he left the band many years ago. So it's a friendship amongst musicians, and so for many, many, many years, like decades, meanwhile even. But there's a fun background story about the song Midnight Sun. You see, after 14 years or so with Rain for a Day, we were kind of in a creative crisis, and we were wondering, will we make another record, or do we part? However, so we wanted to give it a last chance, and Matthias and I rented a small house in Denmark and went there for a week just to make sessions and record stuff, and let's see what happens. Okay, and from those sessions, Matthias listened to all the things we taped at that time, and actually he fell in love with a melody that I improvised during a session, and that was actually the basis of Midnight Sun. And since Matthias and I decided to go separate ways artistically at that point, but he asked me, he said, Mimi, I love that one so much, do you mind if I would record that with Sylvan? And I said like, it would be my biggest joy, of course. Every idea loves to come out. So, and then they asked me to perform the duo and do the female vocals in that song, which was, of course, a pleasure to record with Marco.
And so you've definitely been on this album that I know.
Yeah.
But I think that in of course the video that went with it. But what other Sylvan albums? I looked through them, and go ahead.
Yeah, the posthumous silence production on video. I mean, that is something I can really recommend to any progressive rock listener. One has to understand, you know, Seven, they don't have a huge label behind them or something. They are just the guys that are doing it all on their own. And
Very
they have
good job. Yeah.
It's insane, you know. They think big. That's what I love. They
Yeah.
think big, and then they ask people to support them. They have like, meanwhile, one would say one of their hidden band members is the light technician, because he comes to every show and designs these huge, wonderful effects and brings all the gear and stuff, and kind of fanatic, this guy, you know. And for me, it's such a joy to see how people get creative and don't wait for anyone to do it for them. Or, as I know myself, you know, sometimes you don't have the budget and you don't know how to do it, and the best way is when people just come together and create something, and that's what they do. So it's an insane show, this posthumous silence thing, and I was, you know, participating as well. I sang in the choir and brought two wonderful singer friends from me and of mine, sorry, and also did some of the backing arrangements and stuff. It was an amazing time we had. Great show.
Yeah, it was captured perfectly. I mean, they're probably like, how can we beat this? And they probably won't make another video. But no, hopefully they will. But yeah, it really is. It's incredible. Do you plan to collaborate with them in the future? Or?
Yeah, with my trio, I would do an online show in December.
Oh.
So I would recommend for anyone who's interested in my live appearances, maybe they just visit my webpage or sign into my newsletter, and then they can be updated. So this time I got asked by a girl from Idaho who wants to make a charity music festival in December, and she asked me to participate with my trio, and her plan is to also choose the platform Connect Club to do so. Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah,
that's
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about that. It will be my first time to have an online show with my trio, like kind of with the perspective of also reaching an international audience. You know, before it stayed kind of local, like in Germany, and I was talking in German, of course, which is not so interesting for people from other countries then. But this time I would also talk in English and hopefully reach more people abroad.
I speak a little bit, but I'm not even gonna try. A little German. I've got a German background, but yeah. My favorite word, I think I told you, is Strasse, and I don't say it right, Strasse. But yeah.
But it's good.
Well, thank you.
It's a tricky language. You know?
My uncle speaks it fluently, but I can't. He went over there and loved it and traced our history back and all that, but I haven't. I'd love to go, absolutely. I just time wise, it's been tough. So tell
Mark,
me,
you are always welcome here. You know, whenever you come to Germany, I'll show you around in Hamburg. That would be my biggest pleasure.
All right, I appreciate that. Yep, I think I'd love to go to Hamburg. I'd want to see the whole country, really, but we're from Ulm originally. But anyway, enough about me. All right, you wanted to discuss. I know we talked before this, and you wanted to talk a little bit about how musicians can sort of overcome the problems that the pandemic and lockdown and things have forced on the music industry. And I'm going to give you some time and just tell us what you wanted to talk about. I think it's a great idea. She wants to help out,
Thank you.
others. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I mean, one has to understand what I was thinking about when we talked before we did this interview, and one has to understand that music went through a real transformation even before the COVID crisis happened, which means everything, like the complete understanding of how the music industry works, was based on kind of like old structures. And now we have this transformation to the digital market. People don't buy records anymore. Like, you don't even have a CD player in your car or in your laptop and all these things. So what do people? Yeah, they use streaming services, and that's cool. Everyone loves that. But we have to rethink like the music market, and that's what has been going on for many years. Meanwhile, even before the crisis happened, and I think many fans, especially of indie bands or underground music of whatever genre or kind, they know that what a fan could do to support their artist and band was to go to a live show, buy a ticket, buy a t-shirt, go there, have fun. And that was the way you could support your favorite musician. So then the COVID crisis happened and nobody could perform anymore. So from one day to another, like 100% of your income was actually gone. I mean, it happened to me because, I love recording music and writing music, but, it takes years sometimes to have a next release because I don't make any income from the music that I produce. My income comes from doing live shows, So all of this was gone. So what are you going to do? And then you go like, okay, we do a streaming concert, great. Or I go live on Facebook. And then I did. And some people gave me donations. That is wonderful. It helped me a lot. And from deep from my heart, I want to say thank you for anyone during these extreme months and the past 1.5 years of crisis who made a donation to me or to any other musician during this really hard time of the crisis. So, but another point would be, what can we do like after COVID? What will happen then? How can we rethink like the music market or the way musicians and bands, if we see them as small businesses and solopreneurs, maybe, how can you get in a closer contact with your followers and fans? And how can you attract potential fans if, set the case, that you don't have the income to hire a promoter, for example, or whatever, to get your music out? So what we do is we use the social networks and hopefully get a few more followers and so on and so on. But what we need is content, because we need to sell something. I mean, you cannot go on Instagram and have a nice photo and a video made or whatever, and nothing happens. That would be very sad. So what I am interested in is to go like, what can we do to make it all a bit smaller and more sustainable again, more personal? So what I did with creating the scroll that you showed, the scroll that is accompanying my solo album, my first album, Heliodor, is that was even before COVID. It was the year before, but what I tried to do there followed the same idea that I just explained. It was like, okay, if people don't buy CDs anymore, and I think my fans, they love vinyl, but on the other hand, not all of them have a record player at home. So what can you do? Okay, then let's put out the music digitally. But what happens then to the art that is in record covers? How can we reinterpret this amazing tradition of a record cover that I love so much? You know, we all remember the days when, like, the whole afternoon you were just flipping along the booklet and reading the lyrics and finding out who's played there, and I know that name, he played in that other band I love as well, and so on and so on. And I personally, I grew up with that, and I loved it so much. I think you have your own experience with that, huh?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. What you see in back of me is all CDs, but I have
Ah!
I have the records too. Not all of them, but plenty. I remember having to sneak them in because parents didn't want us buying that kind of music and stuff like that. But definitely, yeah. Um, love vinyl, but I actually, being more progressive, uh, the softer sounds like some of Pink Floyd's stuff, like Dark Side. When that finally came out on CD, I was like, "Thank you." There's no more
Yeah.
pops and skips. I can actually enjoy. It's another song, but enjoy the silence. But no, you know, enjoy the perfection of that. But I like them both. But yeah, and
Totally.
it is what you're hitting at is very important. There's no physical copy. There's nothing like this to hold and say, I connected with that person. And,
Yeah.
you know, in this case, you definitely did. But without that, it's harder. Yeah, you're right. It's just this digital thing that, you know, somebody maybe listens to for a while and then they stop listening to. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's the marketplace has gotten tough for artists, people that actually enjoy making music and
Yeah.
want it to be lasting.
I also was looking for something that people can hold in hands, also to make the experience of listening to music, like in a concentrated and focused way, more attractive. That, you know, the way we consume music nowadays is like you have music you like running, but you would do something else while you were listening, and you know, you're typing emails or doing some cleaning or whatever it is. But you know, this process that you sit down and go like, yeah, I want to listen with attention and find out and let myself be carried away by the storytelling and the music and the emotions, and I want to read the lyrics. I want to dive into the story. You know, this is what I was interested in. So that's why I thought this scroll, I mean, that was my interpretation of dreaming big, because I thought like, okay, it's 10 meters long, not a centimeter less.
Good. You went all out. Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate that. And I know everyone that bought one appreciates it. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where is one place that you would love to perform that maybe you haven't or you've dreamed about? Or once this COVID thing is over, hopefully everyone's going to have the freedom to go where they want to again. And where would you go?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I've only played like single shows with my own music. It's not that I ever went on tour, for example, like having 10 or 20 concerts in a row. And sometimes it's even hard because in more in the southern part of Germany or even other countries, you know, the risk was too high that nobody knows me there. Maybe I wouldn't sell enough tickets to cover the costs for bringing my band and stuff. So actually my dream is to really go on tour and see different places, be able to bring my people there, like my trio, and I'm working on that. I'd also love, you know, Ken and I, we did Ken Stringfellow and I, we did many duo, like double performances here in the north of Germany, and that was amazing too, because I'm, of course, you know, with him, for me, the booking was a lot easier, you know, to convince people to give us a slot, you know, and then you are able to play different places. So if you ask me for a wish, I think I've never been to the United States, and I always dreamt of that. I'm a little bit afraid of flying, but I used to be flying a lot when I was younger, and even very far away places that I even performed. So maybe I should get back and settle and give it a try again.
We'd love to have you over here. Yeah, definitely. Seattle will be a stop.
Yeah, definitely. I always wanted to move there when I was younger. Oh my.
Okay. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. Are there any bands that you would like to collaborate with that you haven't yet, and you want to reach out and tell them today?
I mean, in that dimension that is amongst possible, I'm already doing that. You know, I'm so lucky that I'm collaborating with other artists that I really adore. Like, as I said, like this Canadian songwriter David Celia, or Michael Holt from Cape Cod, or he's in the Mummy Heads, like a band from New York. And I mean, it's such a gift in life that I could meet these guys and collaborate with them on multiple levels. Or sometimes it's also interesting to work with people from completely different genres. Like, I know a house music producer from Italy who is living in Hamburg, and I've done some amazing work. I don't want to say too much, because for my next single, I think we'll also have a remix from the single in a more dancey appearance, because I love to work with this guy. He is brilliant, and yeah, looking forward to that. So I actually do collaborations, but of course we have musical, all of us, every one of us has a musical hero. And my first musical hero was Nick Kershaw from from England. And when I was 7 years old, you know, he was just like the biggest thing ever. And I have to say, I absolutely admire his songwriting. He is an absolutely amazing songwriter, and he had a lot of impact and influence on me. So if I had a wish free, I would like to meet Nick Kershaw once in my life.
That would be great. No, he is very good. Okay, my last question is the same one I ask everyone. Is there anything else you would like to cover that we haven't covered or I haven't asked you?
Yeah, maybe I stopped a little bit too early about that matter. How can we find a better connection as musicians to our fans? And I can only say, you know, the music that the two songs, the two new singles that I produced with Ken, they are already finished and ready to be released. But this COVID crisis has like long-term effects on us musicians and even our economy. And that means, you know, all musicians are innovators because they are creatively thinking people, you know. And sometimes you get stuck, you cannot bring your stuff out because you don't know how to get a budget together for the next video or for this and that. And I was thinking about how can we how can we reduce the stress level on us musicians? You know, musicians are in a depression. You have to understand that. Nobody will see it because to the outside, you know, we are performers and we go like, yeah, I have a groovy thing going on and the next thing and this and that. But on the inside, I know many colleagues of mine, you know, they struggle a lot during these days. And I just want to encourage other artists, musicians, songwriters, or artists of whatever kind to be soft to themselves and go like, okay, it's about something else. It's about learning that what we are bringing into the world is an act of love. We are communicating love because what we do is we transform what happens in the environment around us and we put it into art. So maybe we can downsize it all a bit and go like, okay, I will release my music bit by bit. Maybe I don't have to wait for a whole album. I can do it single by single. Or why do it the way that the music industry tells you to if you can't afford it? You know, why not connect directly with your fan and create some merch ideas, for example, that are interesting and very personalized on what your idea of our world is, you know, also thinking about sustainability, you know, like thinking, how can I rebrand my merch,
Yeah.
for example, in terms of t-shirts, where do they come from? Maybe I design them myself and maybe the local store next door is doing the print and not online somewhere or something, you know, support other small businesses. This is what I find important these days to think about. And I think a lot of will come back, you know, that with every step, a new story will appear that can be shared and inspire others and invite them in to that community of like-minded people.
Well, we really need artistic, creative people, and you're right. We're gonna lose them if they aren't economically viable, and they need to be, because we'll lose that in not just this culture, but all cultures, and it'd be a terrible thing to lose. I want to say that you're very unselfish, you're empathetic and a giving person, and your music reflects it, and you're giving and nurturing, and I really appreciate that. Mimi, thank you for your time and most importantly, your music. This was
Thank you.
wonderful. I've wanted to do this, you know, ever since I reviewed your album, ever since we first talked. Thank you for sharing your time with progressiverockcentral.com. I can't wait to hear your next work of art, and I think it's going to be wonderful. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mark. I'm very grateful for your invitation and for the lovely conversation we had. And thank you for giving me, you know, the time here to tell my story and my thoughts and share them. I appreciate very much. And you will be the first to hear the new songs, I promise.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and then we can talk.
Okay.